Behind you and what we've passed out is a trend line, and of course it doesn't start with 1970, but it does provide some perspective back then. And as you can see, since basically 2007, we have enjoyed an increasingly decline in the overall crime rate, both violent crime and overall Part 1 crime. And there's a lot of things that go into those explanations, but we'll fast forward to this year, 2018 in comparison to 2017. 3% decline over last year in violent crime. When I say violent crime, that's murder, robbery, rape, and aggravated assault. A 6% decline in overall Part 1 crimes, which are parsed out in the handouts that you've been provided. And of course, with that, the biggest driver of overall crime, Part 1 crimes, is larceny and theft. But we need to put all of this into perspective, because the reality is these numbers only constitute about 8% of Lincoln police officers' workload. It is not all crime. It's the ones that we report to the FBI. And of course, they're the ones that are the most high profile when we talk about the approximately 1,038 violent crimes in Lincoln last year. That's what gains the attention of many of you. So there's some other things too that aren't on these graphs that I want to kind of point out, and then I'll try to take some questions. There were, in Lincoln last year, 11 incidents where shootings caused injuries and of a criminal nature. 30 overall, but only 11 of them involved some type of crime. 3 of them were homicides. We have an ever-increasing number of felony arrests. In fact, felony arrests last year were up 15.7% compared to the year before, 15.7% compared to the 5-year trend, and up 6.4% over 2017. The highest total since at least 1999. And we have to ask ourselves, well, what is driving that? And of course, one is the continuing effects of the crime bill in 2009, where many of the dollar amounts for the theft-related cases were increased, where formerly they would have been a misdemeanor, today they are a felony. But, and I've talked about this publicly a few different times, the complexity of the investigations. Although all of this stuff is decreasing, the expectations for courtroom prosecution and for the community at large changing dramatically. 2 of those things I can objectively point out to you, and one is video analysis. All of us have seen how powerful and impactful video evidence can be, whether that's video evidence from a convenience store, from a home surveillance system, from Ring doorbells. That continuing proliferation creates expectations. It helps us clear crimes, but it places a huge demand that wasn't there a decade ago. 10 years ago, we reviewed 100 video cases. In the physical year last year, 1,280. And we've had 1 person assigned in that role during that entire time. Another one that really stands out and isn't something, although I talk about it all the time and we know about the effects of cell phone analysis and computer analysis, a decade ago, we weren't even tracking it. And last year, we had 531 forensic examinations of computers, tablets, but mainly cell phones. And when we look at the increasing number of felony arrests, the increasing expectations for courtroom prosecution, although crime is down, the demands on our workforce are not. And a couple other things that I really think are important to point out. Mental health calls for service. I can't even hardly describe how that has continued to impact our workforce and our workload. Up 4.4% compared to 2017, over 24% in the 5-year trend. They're significant. They are They take tremendous amounts of time and energy, and we work so hard with our community partners, whether it is the Mental Health Association in Nebraska, Centerpoint, the Bridge, so many of those, to help assist us, hopefully improving quality of life, but ultimately we're trying to reduce calls for service too. What else? What else can I try to answer for you? Lots of information here.
When you look at the decrease in the Part 1 crimes,
Yeah.
Are there any sort of underlying factors that contributed to that? Because we did see, what, 4% or 1%, almost 2% change in the populations. We got bigger between the 2 years, but fewer.
Driver, if you look at the chart, that is, I'll have to pull it back up here, sorry. This one. Larceny theft, biggest part of the Part 1 crimes. And 7.4% decrease in that is significant. We attribute that to a host of different things. First and foremost is the cooperation that we're getting from the public and the public education campaigns and all the work by all of you to assist us in that endeavor. We think that the 9 p.m. routine made an impact, and we're finalizing the study that we were doing in 2018, and we will be sharing all of that information with you shortly. But people taking ownership, they're changing their practices, they're not leaving valuables, they're not leaving their cars unlocked, all of those things driving those numbers down. Here's another thing too that drives it down. Larceny from autos are a crime type where people often are not only doing one, they're doing strings of them. And there was been some outstanding work that has been done in both 2017 and 2018 arresting individuals, so targeted enforcement at those that we know are committing a multitude of different crimes, arresting them, holding them accountable through the court process, and stopping this upward trend.
And those larcenies, is there a threshold that makes them a Part 1 crime versus a petty theft?
No, all larcenies are in that.
All theft?
Yep.
Okay. Is there a message you'd want to get out? I mean, people hear about the reduction in crime, the reduction in violent crime, but yet you're indicating you're still busier than ever. Is that not right?
That is correct, Jane. And whether it is the geographic expanse of the city, the population growth of the city, more importantly, the expectations of the community members in Lincoln to not tolerate crime, that all is coming into play. And although the numbers are going down, it's a small percentage of our workload, 8% I'm estimating. The complexity of the investigations, the increase in felony crime types or arrests, are all drivers that contribute to that added workload.
What about, are you seeing, the violent crime wouldn't indicate that, but are you seeing an increase in gang-connected crimes as well?
No.
No. Okay.
Nope. We're not seeing statistical increases in that particular area.
And what do you think, what would you want the people of Lincoln to know when they look at these charts and when we tell them all these, numbers that have gone down, all these complicated technicalities, but in the end, what is that message boiled down to that you want people to know?
One is thank you, because the Lincoln Police Department, the media, all of our partners are a very small component of public safety in Lincoln. The biggest component is the citizens that live here, that work here, that won't tolerate crime, that when crime happens, they're cooperating with our officers. And so thanks is the biggest message that I want to point out.
Also, when it comes to, we hear a lot of indications that some candidates would like more police officers. Does it seem like maybe you need more police officers in certain areas because of the sophistication of various help that you're getting anymore?
That's a great question, Jane. I think that one of the areas that the Lincoln Police Department needs assistance in is this. I cited to you that 10 years ago, we're not even tracking the number of forensic exams that we're doing of digital devices. Today, that number, or in 2018, that was 531. We're great because of the expertise gained by individuals within this workforce and our partnerships. That is another partnership that we've had with the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office and our electronic evidence unit. We're great at getting the data. We do not have the time to analyze the increasing amounts of storage on your smartphone, on your computer, and diving and pouring through all that, because that takes time and it takes an understanding of how it's going to be applied to the cases that they're working. And so I think that that is an important component. Two is that we made gains, and I wrote some numbers down because I also anticipated that question. 1997, the Lincoln Police Department had 1.38 officers per 1,000. 2007, 1.28. 2017, 1.15. And despite the population growth in 2018 that is evidenced on the handouts that you have, but because of the leadership of Mayor Beitler and the city council members, we were able to add 12 commissioned officers to our workforce. 7 of those came through the Safe and Successful Kids interlocal campaign, and 5 of them through the budgetary process. And that moved those numbers to 1.21.
How does that compare to cities of comparable size?
In Nebraska, we are the smallest policing entity for cities over 5,000 people. And when we do our comparisons with benchmark communities across the country, we're one of the smallest workforces per 1,000 in the country.
So you would hope to have more officers added into the department?
When we look at the issues that are currently facing the Lincoln Police Department, keeping growth in a manner that does not compromise the standards of our workforce is going to continue to be the point of emphasis. It was the primary focus when I came to this role in 2016, and it continues to be in 2019.
Go back to your first point about the complexity and the inability to go through all of this digital evidence you're seizing from tablets, cell phones, computers. Do you have to prioritize cases where there's a more readily apparent need to have that understanding and have that? I mean, are the most serious cases being prioritized over other cases where it might be helpful, but you don't know?
Yes, every single day that is occurring, and that is violent crime obviously is going to take precedent. Death investigations is another one that aren't reflected on these particular numbers. But when we go into work a death investigation, not necessarily a homicide, but we're trying to ensure, is it criminal in nature, is it not criminal in nature? Digital evidence, especially from cell phones, is one of the primary things that we can use to start establishing timeline, point of last contact, what is going on in somebody's life, if we think about all the information that is contained within a cell phone. So all of those things have to be prioritized. Violent crime, death investigations are 2 examples. And sometimes, even though there's video evidence or cell phone evidence in misdemeanor crime types or some of the felony possession of drug cases, we're not able to spend the amount of time necessary to completely digest and analyze all that information.
So, Chief, would you like to see the increase in personnel in the forensic department?
That is one of, as we're forward looking both this year in 2019 and within the next decade, we know that that is a change that is coming and a need that we have to address.
Are there any other specific goals or changes that you want the department to accomplish in 2019?
We have begun to prioritize both through our strategic plan that's available to all of you online and through the constant change that is coming to us. Once again, I talked about staffing. Staffing without compromise to standards is our main priority. We have several different facilities projects that are occurring. One of the biggest that we're undergoing right now is that we have purchased a new garage facility, and we are in the process of build out at that location to accommodate the fleet the light fleet of the entire city, which is almost 610 vehicles. That's a big priority 2019 going forward. We have some projects that we know are going to be completed in 2019. We're looking forward to that. In fact, here within the next couple weeks, the burn-in for the radio system will begin. That's exciting stuff and a big part of public safety. I took a tour earlier this week of 6601 Pine Lake, and we're hopeful that in April that facility will be open and that our officers and fire will be deploying out of that location. That will help our response times in the deepest sectors of southeast Lincoln, where today officers are often deploying from downtown. Soon they'll be leaving from 6601 Pine Lake. In addition to that, we have prioritized a number of technology projects that are pressing issues for us, and we're looking at one is how do we sustain that cost and expertise, and then how do we continue to grow and keep pace.
And going back to the personnel topic, how, I know you said the smallest force for a city this size in Nebraska, and even one of the smaller ones in the nation, but these numbers are showing a steady decline in crime. How is that possible? Marcus, what do you do to make that happen?
You know what, again, that is one of the most important questions that we need to answer. And I can't sit here and provide all of the answers to it, but two of the biggest components are this. Number one is the cooperation of the community. The cooperation of a community of almost 300,000 people. You do not experience that in other locations. And two is the ownership and expertise of the workforce of the men and women of the Lincoln Police Department. I see and hear about great and outstanding innovative work every single day. And when I have conversations and receive input, they care so much about this community and want to be a part of the public safety picture.
I'm sorry, can I be back up and just, I can't read my notes very well. You said felony arrest. How were they up from last year?
Oh, yeah. Let me grab that, Jane. That's a important one for us to get. .4% up from last year, 15.7% up over the 5-year trend line. Because we've seen some news accounts, and that's why I brought this up, and others, we've discussed this, is although these crime numbers are down, those expectations are up, and the complexity is nothing like it was even a decade ago, and especially 20 years ago. Okay?